Okay, so for the longest time, Shadow Mewtwo was the #1 Pokemon in Pokemon Go. When it came to raid battles, PvP, as well as other content like gym battles and Team Go Rocket battles, this was one of those Pokemon you absolutely needed to have. And the consensus has always been that you never purify Shadow Mewtwo, even if you were to get a perfect IV. The reason for that is because Shadow Mewtwo deals an incredible amount of damage with its Shadow bonus, and you don't want to lose that. But now it seems like Shadow Mewtwo has definitely fallen off. It's not considered a top tier Pokemon, and a big reason for that is the release of several Pokemon over the past couple of years. I'm going to be talking about this in today's video and discussing whether or not Shadow Mewtwo still holds any kind of relevance. Hey, what's happening everyone? Count Jinsula here with a brand new Pokemon Go video. I hope your day is going really well, and let's get right into it. So one of my favorite Pokemon in Pokemon Go has always been Shadow Mewtwo. I was able to get myself a really good Shadow Mewtwo from its initial release. I think it was Pokemon Go Fest of either 2019 or 2020. I think it was 2019, but this was one of my best moments in Pokemon Go because you were only able to get one Shadow Mewtwo through a special research with that event, and mine happened to be 98%, which is absolutely insane for a Shadow Mewtwo. And it's one of my Pokemon that I've used quite extensively. I've used it in several different raid battles, I've used it in PvP, I've also used it in a lot of other content, and it was probably my most used Pokemon for probably at least about 5 years. But recently, I found myself never using Shadow Mewtwo. When it comes to raid battles, even ones where Psychic types are the central weakness, I haven't been using Shadow Mewtwo, primarily because there has been several additions to Pokemon Go recently, and Shadow Mewtwo has definitely fallen off. In particular, the recent release of Mega Mewtwo X and Y has definitely taken a lot of stock out of Shadow Mewtwo's relevance. A lot of players kind of predicted this, and a lot of people made the argument that you should purify Shadow Mewtwo specifically because of the Mega Evolutions. And to that, I totally understand. I totally agree with the idea that a perfect IV Mega Mewtwo Y is going to be a lot more valuable than a Shadow Mewtwo. However, I still feel like it's totally okay to have both. Like if you have a high IV Shadow Mewtwo, you should power that up and also have a high IV non-Shadow Mewtwo specifically for the Mega Evolutions. And recently we've had a free 100% IV Mewtwo that everyone could get, and I think you can still get it. There's like a timed research that you can get. This was like a makeup to a huge controversy that happened about close to a month ago, and yeah, you could get yourself a perfect IV Mewtwo. So you don't need to purify a Shadow Mewtwo in order to have a perfect IV. And I think because of that, players might still make the argument that having a Shadow Mewtwo is okay, but you still do not see it. I mean, there are plenty of raids where Psychic types are going to be the central weakness. I think when it comes to, in particular, any raid boss that is, I don't know, like poison types, or maybe, it's actually kind of rare. You don't really see a lot of raid bosses that are specifically weak against Psychic types, now that I think about it. Maybe there's a few, I guess, Mega Evolution raids, maybe Super Mega raids like Mega Victory Bell, where you could use Psychic types, but in those cases, you're better off using stuff like Mega Rayquaza. And yeah, it just seems like Psychic types are not necessarily as relevant. And I think that's a big part of why people do not use Shadow Mewtwo anymore. I mean, yeah, there's certainly a lot of raid bosses and content that's going to be weak against Psychic types, like fighting type raid bosses, but in those cases, you probably would end up using something else anyway, like flying types. There's a lot more stronger flying types in the game ever since Shadow Mewtwo was released. In particular, I mentioned it, Mega Rayquaza. That is a powerhouse when it comes to flying type raid damage. And in the cases where you would use a Psychic type, you're probably told to use a flying type instead. And then in some other cases, like poison types, yeah, that might be the rare case, but how many poison type raid battles are there specifically? I think in the past couple of years, the only one that I can think of is Nihilego. And even then, you're probably using fighting types because it also has the rock typing. I mean, there's just so many different examples where specifically a psychic type is not necessary. Now let's talk about Mega Mewtwo Y, because when it comes to psychic types, yes, it is definitely a lot more powerful than Shadow Mewtwo, but a lot of people are going to use Mega Mewtwo Y, not necessarily for the Shadow or for the psychic type moves. It's going to be for the ghost type moves. Mega Mewtwo Y with Shadow Ball, that's going to be in the top tier list for a lot of different raid counters, not necessarily with Psystrike. I think a lot of people are aware of this, and that is a big reason why you don't see a lot of discussion around Shadow Mewtwo. I think these are just some of the things that really tie into power creep, that the power scaling in Pokemon Go is definitely a lot different from back in the day when Shadow Mewtwo was released. I mean, back then, Shadow Mewtwo was all around the best generalist, but at the time we didn't have Mega Evolutions, we didn't have a lot of the legendaries that we have right now, we didn't even have Ultra Beasts, and Shadow Pokemon were kind of new at that time. So having a Shadow Mewtwo that was actually quite substantially relevant back then. You could use Shadow Mewtwo as basically like a generalist for all different kinds of content, and you were going to be successful. But nowadays, there's so many different options, and better options at that. When it comes to DPS, like dealing raid damage, when it comes to certain content like Team Go Rocket battles and PvP battles, you're going to find that there's plenty of other Pokemon that are going to be a lot more useful, even as a generalist, than Shadow Mewtwo. So yeah, I think this is very interesting because I even myself, for the longest time, I've been such a huge fan of Shadow Mewtwo. And I think for a lot of people out there, it's kind of like a forgotten part of Pokemon Go. It's kind of like yesterday's news at this point. A lot of people just simply do not hold Shadow Mewtwo as strongly as a lot of other Pokemon that we've had. I mean, even the fusion forms, like, my god, we've had so many great Pokemon that were released over the years that you don't necessarily find the case that even Shadow Pokemon are that relevant, because you got the fusion forms for Necrozma, you got the fusion forms for Kyurem, you also have Crown Sword Zacian and Crown Shield Zamazenta. You have so many very powerful Pokemon that a lot of people do not use a lot of the powerhouses of the past. Shadow Mewtwo, I mean, maybe you can make the case for a Pokemon like Shadow Darkrai that is definitely up there as a useful Pokemon nowadays. But yeah, I feel like Shadow Pokemon are kind of outdated at this point. It might get to the point where even Mega Evolutions are going to be outdated, and we're going to see so many powerful Pokemon get released soon. Like, we have Ultra Necrozma, we have Arceus, we have a whole bunch of other Pokemon that are likely going to get adventure effects, that are likely going to have some sort of cool mechanic with them. It does seem like Scopely is trying to diversify the gameplay and add new mechanics. So yeah, that's just something that I was thinking about. It was just very interesting because I really, you know, it was just one of those like shower thoughts recently. And I also saw a post on Reddit talking about it as well. Just like, Shadow Mewtwo has really fallen off. It was very interesting because I always thought of it as like the most powerful Pokemon in the game that you can have, but it hasn't been that case for quite some time now, at least for the last 4 years. Like, people just don't care about Shadow Mewtwo anymore. Even when it came out in Shadow Raids, like, people didn't necessarily think of it as like, oh my gosh, you have to raid for Shadow Mewtwo. Like, it was basically just like, oh, that's exciting. But yeah, it's just very interesting. But yeah, who knows? Maybe I'm completely off base. Maybe this is just specifically me. But yeah, I would like to know your thoughts. Do you still feel like Shadow Mewtwo is relevant? Do you feel like this Pokemon is still something worth powering up? Definitely share your reasons for thinking that down below. I would definitely be interested to hear about it. And yeah, let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. I know this was kind of like a rant, or like just me kind of pouring out my thoughts. I like to do these every now and then, just like turn on the camera, have very little editing, and just talk and share my thoughts on Pokemon Go. It gives me a sense of, I don't know, just being real with you. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, hit the like button for this video. That would encourage me to do more videos just like this, and also subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you turn on the notification bell so you can see more content just like this one. And if you have some time, check out the links in the description below. One of them is my Patreon page. If you join my Patreon, I'm going to add you to my Pokemon Go friends list. So if you want to play Pokemon Go with me, make sure you go and check out my Patreon. There's also links to my other social media pages as well, like my TikTok and my Instagram. Make sure you go and check those out as well. And that's going to be it for this video. I'm Count Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself today, and I'll catch you all in the next video.